31 people who cheated death multiple times. Some people have survived situations where death seemed inevitable, not once, but multiple times. From plane crashes to shark attacks, volcanic eruptions to months adrift at sea, these individuals faced circumstances that defy probability. Whether through luck, determination, or extraordinary circumstances, their stories challenge our understanding of human survival. Here are 31 remarkable cases of people who encountered death repeatedly and lived to tell about it. Number 1. Julian Koch survived a 2-mile fall in 10 days in the Amazon. On December 24, 1971, 17-year-old Julian Koch was aboard LANSA Flight 508 when lightning struck the plane over Peru. The aircraft disintegrated at 10,000 feet. Still strapped to her seat, Koch fell 2 miles into the Amazon rainforest and survived. She was the sole survivor among 93 passengers. With a broken collarbone, deep lacerations, and one eye swollen shut, she spent 10 days navigating the jungle alone. Using survival skills her biologist parents had taught her, she followed water downstream, treated her wounds, and sustained herself on minimal supplies found in the wreckage. On the 10th day, she discovered a boat and shelter where loggers found her and arranged rescue. She later became a biologist herself, following in her parents' footsteps. Number 2. Vesna Vulovic survived the highest fall without a parachute. On January 26, 1972, Jet Flight 367 exploded over Czechoslovakia at 33,330 feet. Flight attendant Vesna Vulovic fell inside a section of fuselage, landing in a snowy, forested mountainside. She was the only survivor among 28 people aboard. She suffered a fractured skull, broken vertebrae, 3 broken legs, broken ribs, and a fractured pelvis. After being in a coma for 27 days, she eventually regained consciousness. Though initially paralyzed from the waist down, she eventually walked again. Her survival earned her a Guinness World Record for surviving the highest fall without a parachute. She lived until 2016, passing away at age 66. Number 3. Poon Lim, 133 days alone at sea. In 1942, Chinese sailor Poon Lim survived the torpedoing of his British merchant ship by a German U-boat. He escaped on a wooden raft and drifted alone in the South Atlantic for 133 days, the longest solo survival at sea ever recorded. He caught fish and seabirds with improvised hooks made from materials on the raft, collected rainwater in canvas, and fought off sharks. Despite losing significant weight, he remained mentally sharp. Brazilian fishermen finally rescued him near the coast of Brazil. The British Royal Navy later incorporated his survival techniques into their training programs. He emigrated to the United States and lived until 1991, dying at age 72. Number 4. Harrison Okene, 60 hours underwater in a sunken ship. In May 2013, Nigerian cook Harrison Okene was aboard a tugboat that capsized and sank 100 feet underwater off Nigeria's coast. He survived in a 4-foot air pocket in the bathroom while the ship rested on the ocean floor. For 60 hours in complete darkness, he endured freezing water and the sounds of marine life. He survived without food and with minimal water. When divers arrived for body recovery on the 3rd day, they were shocked to discover him alive. The dramatic rescue was captured on camera. He was successfully decompressed and treated for hypothermia, making a full recovery. Number 5. Bahia Bakari, 12-year-old sole survivor of ocean crash. On June 30, 2009, Yamenia Flight 626 crashed into the Indian Ocean near the Comoros Islands. Of 153 people aboard, only 12-year-old Bahia Bakari survived. Despite being unable to swim well and having no life vest, she clung to wreckage for 13 hours through the night. Rescuers found her the next morning, exhausted and injured but alive. Her mother perished in the crash. Bahia's recovery was remarkable, and she later wrote a book about her experience, becoming a symbol of resilience. Number 6. Aaron Ralston, self-amputation in Utah Canyon. In April 2003, experienced canyoneer Aaron Ralston was exploring Utah's Blue John Canyon alone when an 800-pound boulder shifted, trapping his right forearm. After 5 days with minimal water and no food, facing certain death, he made an extraordinary decision. Using a dull multi-tool, he broke his forearm bones by torquing his body, then cut through muscle, tendons, and nerves. The amputation took over an hour. He then rappelled 65 feet and hiked 6 miles before encountering rescuers. He lost 40 pounds and his right arm below the elbow but survived. He later returned to mountaineering and continued climbing, even summiting peaks one-handed. Number 7. Jan Balsrud, 9-week Arctic escape from Nazis. During World War II, Norwegian resistance fighter Jan Balsrud participated in a sabotage mission in 1943. When his team was ambushed by German forces, he alone escaped, barefoot into the Arctic wilderness. For 9 weeks, he evaded Nazi patrols while suffering severe frostbite, snow blindness, and avalanches. Gangrene set in, forcing him to amputate 9 of his own toes without anesthesia. Norwegian villagers risked their lives helping him cross into neutral Sweden. He survived and later returned to active service. He lived until 1988, dying at age 71. His story was documented in the book and film, We Die Alone. Number 8. Anatoly Bugorsky survived a particle accelerator beam through his head. In 1978, Soviet physicist Anatoly Bugorsky was inspecting a malfunctioning particle accelerator when safety protocols failed. A proton beam traveling near the speed of light passed through his skull, entering the back of his head and exiting through his nose. He reported seeing a flash brighter than 1,000 suns but felt no pain. Doctors expected him to die within days. Instead, the left half of his face became paralyzed, and he lost hearing in one ear, but he suffered no other major impairments. He completed his PhD and continued working as a scientist. Now in his 80s, he remains alive, one of the only humans to survive such an exposure. Number 9. Beck Weathers left for dead on Everest twice. During the deadly 1996 Mount Everest disaster, pathologist Beck Weathers collapsed from hypothermia and cerebral edema at 26,000 feet. Rescuers found him with barely detectable vital signs and left him for dead, believing he couldn't survive. Hours later, he regained consciousness and staggered back to camp. The next morning, he collapsed again outside his tent and was again presumed dead. Hours later, he revived once more. He was eventually helicoptered off the mountain in the highest altitude rescue ever attempted at that time. He lost his right hand, parts of his left hand, his nose, and parts of his face to frostbite but survived. His story was featured in John Krakauer's Into Thin Air. Number 10. Anna Bagenholm survived 80 minutes frozen under ice. In May 1999, Swedish radiologist Anna Bagenholm was skiing in Norway when she fell through ice into a frozen stream. Trapped headfirst underwater for 80 minutes, her body temperature dropped to 56, 7 degrees F, 13, 7 degrees C, the lowest ever recorded in a surviving human with accidental hypothermia. Her heart had stopped, and she showed no signs of life when pulled out. Medical teams worked for 9 hours to gradually rewarm her body. Remarkably, her heart restarted, and she survived with complete neurological recovery. The extreme cold had protected her brain from oxygen deprivation. She returned to work as a radiologist and remains an advocate for hypothermia treatment research. Number 11. Mauro Prosperi, 10 days lost in the Sahara. In 1994, Italian police officer Mauro Prosperi was competing in the Marathon des Sables, a 6-day ultramarathon through the Moroccan Sahara. A sandstorm caused him to lose his way, and he inadvertently crossed into Algeria. For 9 days, he survived on rationed food, his own urine, bats he found in a shrine, and raw snakes. At his lowest point, he attempted suicide by cutting his wrists, but his dehydrated blood clotted too quickly. He trekked approximately 186 miles before finding a nomadic camp. He lost 35 pounds but recovered fully. Years later, he returned to complete the race. Number 12. Stephen Callahan, 76 days adrift in the Atlantic. In 1982, sailor Stephen Callahan's boat sank in a storm 800 miles west of the Canary Islands. He escaped in an inflatable life raft with minimal emergency supplies. For 76 days, he drifted across the Atlantic Ocean, surviving by catching fish with a makeshift spear, collecting rainwater, and constantly repairing his deteriorating raft. Sharks repeatedly attacked the raft, requiring constant patches. He lost a third of his body weight before fishermen near Guadeloupe spotted him on day 76. He survived and documented his experience in the book Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea, which became essential reading for survival training. Number 13. Alison Botha survived 30 stab wounds and near decapitation. In December 1994, Alison Botha was abducted and brutally attacked near Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Her attackers stabbed her 30 times in the abdomen and slashed her throat so severely they nearly decapitated her. They left her to die in a field. Holding her head up with one hand and her intestines with the other, she crawled to a road where a passing motorist found her. She survived emergency surgery. Her attackers were caught, convicted, and imprisoned. She made a remarkable recovery, became a motivational speaker, married, and had 2 sons. Her story became the subject of a documentary and book. Number 14. Douglas Mawson, Antarctic survival while physically deteriorating. During the Australasian Antarctic expedition of 1912-1913, explorer Douglas Mawson faced catastrophe when his 2 companions died, one falling into a crevasse with most of their supplies, the other from suspected vitamin A poisoning from eating husky liver. Alone and 100 miles from base, Mawson also suffered from hypervitaminosis A, causing his skin and hair to fall out, and his feet to deteriorate so badly he had to cut away dead tissue and bandage them. He fell into crevasses multiple times, pulling himself out each time. After 31 days alone, he reached base, hours after the relief ship had departed. He survived another Antarctic winter before finally being rescued. He lived until 1958, dying at age 76. Number 15. Yossi Ginsberg, 3 weeks lost in the Bolivian Amazon. In 1981, Israeli adventurer Yossi Ginsberg and 3 companions attempted to trek through the Bolivian Amazon. When they separated, Ginsberg became lost and alone for 19 days. He survived on foraged fruits, bird eggs, and river water while battling infections, fire ants, quicksand, and hallucinations from fever. His feet became severely infected with worms. Local indigenous people finally found him near death. He recovered and wrote Jungle, a harrowing true story of survival, later adapted into a film starring Daniel Radcliffe. Number 16. Yasser Lopez survived spear through the head. In 2012, Florida teenager Yasser Lopez was spearfishing with friends when one accidentally shot him from behind with a spear gun. The 3-foot spear entered the back of his head and exited between his eyes above his nose. Remaining conscious and calm, Lopez swam to shore, and his friends drove him to a fire station, where he was airlifted to a hospital. In a delicate 5-hour operation, surgeons removed the spear. He survived with no brain damage and made a full recovery, a testament to both the trajectory of the spear missing critical brain structures and skilled neurosurgery. Number 17. Shavash Karapetian saved 20 lives, nearly died twice. In September 1976, Armenian champion finswimmer Shavash Karapetian was on a training run when he witnessed a bus crash into a reservoir in Yerevan. Without hesitation, he dove into the freezing, murky water, breaking through bus windows with his legs and pulling passengers to safety. He saved 20 people but inhaled contaminated water, contracted pneumonia, and nearly died. His athletic career ended due to lung damage. In 1985, he ran into a burning building to rescue people, suffering burns. Both times, his heroic actions nearly killed him, but he survived, though with permanent health consequences. He remains a celebrated hero in Armenia. Number 18. Yua Wisniewska sucked into a thunderstorm at 32,000 feet. In February 2007, German paraglider Yua Wisniewska was training for the Paragliding World Championships near Manila, Australia, when a massive thunderstorm system developed. The storm's updraft sucked her up at speeds exceeding 60 mph to approximately 32,000 feet, higher than Mount Everest. She lost consciousness from lack of oxygen and was covered in ice, pelted by hail, and exposed to lightning inside the storm for nearly an hour. When the storm released her, she regained consciousness around 20,000 feet and managed to land safely, though with severe frostbite. Another paraglider caught in the same storm did not survive. Her survival remains one of the most extraordinary meteorological survival stories ever documented. Number 19. Phineas Gage survived iron rod through his brain. In September 1848, railroad construction foreman Phineas Gage was working in Vermont when an accidental explosion drove a 3-foot, 7-inch iron tamping rod completely through his skull. The rod entered beneath his left cheekbone, passed behind his eye, through his brain's frontal lobe, and exited through the top of his head. Remarkably, Gage remained conscious, walked to a cart and sought medical attention. Dr. John Harlow treated him and Gage survived, though his personality changed dramatically. He became impulsive and struggled with social behavior. He lived 12 more years, dying in 1860. His case became foundational to neuroscience. Number 20. Elian Gonzalez, 5-year-old, survived 2 days at sea. In November 1999, 5-year-old Elian Gonzalez was aboard a small boat fleeing Cuba with his mother and others when it capsized in the Florida Straits. His mother and most others drowned. Elian floated alone for approximately 2 days, clinging to an inner tube, before being rescued by fishermen. He was severely dehydrated and sunburned but survived. His rescue sparked an intense international custody dispute between relatives in Miami and his father in Cuba. After months of legal and diplomatic battles, he returned to Cuba in June 2000. Number 21. Alcide Dominique survived earthquake and field amputation. After the devastating 2010 Haiti earthquake, 16-year-old Alcide Dominique was trapped under rubble for 18 hours with his leg crushed beneath concrete. When rescuers finally reached him, they realized his leg was so badly damaged and firmly trapped that amputation was the only way to free him. Without proper anesthesia or a sterile environment, doctors amputated his leg. He survived the earthquake, crush injuries, and crude field surgery. He later became involved in Paralympic sports, transforming his tragedy into athletic achievement. Number 22. Joan Murray, fire ants saved her after 14,500-foot fall. In 1999, experienced skydiver Joan Murray's primary parachute malfunctioned at 14,500 feet during a jump in North Carolina. Her reserve chute also tangled, and she fell at approximately 80 mph. She landed directly on a fire ant mound. The ants swarmed and stung her over 200 times. Medical experts believe the massive adrenaline release from the stings kept her heart beating. She suffered severe injuries, broken bones, ruptured organs, but survived and recovered. Her case became a medical curiosity. The insects that should have added to her misery actually saved her life. Number 23. Cecilia Sitchin, 4-year-old sole survivor. In August 1987, 4-year-old Cecilia Sitchin was aboard Northwest Airlines Flight 255 when it crashed during takeoff from Detroit. The crash killed 156 people, including Cecilia's parents and brother. Cecilia was found under wreckage, shielded by her mother's body, which had protected her during the impact. She suffered degree burns and a fractured skull and collarbone but survived. Firefighter John Theed, who found her, remained in contact with her for years. Cecilia was raised by relatives and has maintained privacy about her experience while living a quiet, normal life. Number 24. Wenceslao Magal survived execution by firing squad. During the Mexican Revolution in 1915, Wenceslao Magal was captured by federal forces and sentenced to death. He was shot 9 times by a firing squad, then an officer delivered a coup de grace, a point-blank shot to the head. Left for dead, Magal regained consciousness hours later. He somehow survived, crawled to safety, and received medical help. He lived for decades afterward, at one point touring with Ripley's Believe It or Not, where he showed his scars, including the entry and exit wounds from the head shot. His survival remains one of history's most improbable cases of execution survival. Number 25. Ludger Sobaris survived volcanic eruption in prison. On May 8, 1902, Mount Pelée on the Caribbean island of Martinique erupted catastrophically, killing approximately 30,000 people in minutes. The city of Saint-Pierre was obliterated by superheated gas and ash. Ludger Sobaris was one of only 3 survivors, spared because he was locked in a poorly ventilated underground solitary confinement cell with thick stone walls. He suffered severe burns but lived. After recovering, he was pardoned and joined the Barnum and Bailey Circus as the man who lived through doomsday, traveling and sharing his story. Number 26. Roy Sullivan struck by lightning 7 times. U.S. Park Ranger Roy Sullivan holds the record for surviving the most lightning strikes. Between 1942 and 1977, he was struck 7 separate times and survived each one. The strikes left him with various injuries: lost toenail, burned eyebrows, shoulder burns, hair set on fire twice, leg burns, chest and stomach burns, and more. He carried a can of water with him after the 4th strike in case his hair caught fire again, which it did. He survived all 7 strikes, though various injuries accumulated. He lived until 1983, dying at age 71 from causes unrelated to lightning. Number 27. Ruben Van Assaou, 9-year-old sole survivor. In May 2010, 9-year-old Ruben Van Assaou was aboard Africa Airways Flight 771 approaching Tripoli, Libya, when it crashed during landing. All 103 people aboard died except Ruben, who was found in the wreckage with multiple fractures. His parents and brother died in the crash. He was airlifted to the Netherlands, where he underwent surgery and recovered physically. He was raised by relatives and has largely remained out of the public eye, dealing privately with the physical and emotional aftermath. Number 28. Norman Alistad survived crash and mountain descent at age 11. In February 1979, 11-year-old Norman Alistad was flying with his father and his father's girlfriend in a small plane when it crashed into a snowy mountain in the San Gabriel Mountains of California. His father and the pilot died on impact. Injured, in shock, and alone, Norman climbed down the steep, icy mountainside for hours in freezing conditions before being spotted by rescuers. He later wrote the memoir Crazy for the Storm about the experience, and his survival was attributed to both preparation and sheer willpower. Number 29. Bethany Hamilton, shark attack survivor who became pro surfer. In October 2003, 13-year-old Bethany Hamilton was surfing off Kauai's North Shore when a tiger shark attacked, severing her left arm. She lost over 60% of her blood but remained remarkably calm, allowing friends to tourniquet her arm and rush her to the hospital. 1 month after the attack, she returned to surfing. Within 2 years, she won her first national title. She became a professional surfer, competed internationally, married, and had children, all while continuing her surfing career. Her story inspired the film Soul Surfer and made her an international inspiration. Number 30. Keche Akuchi survived plane crash with 65% burns. In December 2005, 16-year-old Keche Akuchi was aboard Sasalizo Airlines Flight 1145 when it crashed in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Of 108 people aboard, only 2 survived. Keche suffered degree burns over 65% of her body. She underwent more than 100 surgeries over many years. She moved to the United States for treatment and education, graduated from university, and pursued a music career. She became a contestant on America's Got Talent in 2017, where she showcased her powerful voice. She continues performing and inspiring others as a motivational speaker. Number 31. Tommy Oldham Ashcraft sailed 1,500 miles alone after hurricane. In October 1983, Tommy Oldham Ashcraft and her fiancé Richard Sharp were sailing from Tahiti to San Diego when they encountered Hurricane Raymond. The storm was catastrophic. Richard was swept overboard and lost, while Tommy was knocked unconscious below deck. When she regained consciousness, she discovered the boat severely damaged, the mast gone and navigation equipment destroyed. Injured and grieving, she was 1,500 miles from land. For 41 days, she sailed using a sextant and improvised repairs, rationing limited food and water. She successfully reached Hawaii and survived. Her ordeal inspired the 2018 film Adrift. These 31 stories represent the extremes of human survival, people who faced circumstances that should have been fatal, sometimes multiple times, and yet survived. From plane crashes to shark attacks, from volcanic eruptions to months adrift at sea, these individuals demonstrate the remarkable resilience of the human body and spirit. Whether through luck, skill, determination, or a combination of all three, they survived when probability suggested they shouldn't have. Their stories remind us that survival is sometimes about refusing to give up, even when all odds suggest you should.